The silence was the worst part. Admiral Jinha stood in what used to be the command center of Luna Base. Now it was just broken metal and dead screens. Through the cracked window he could see Earth floating in the darkness. It looked peaceful, beautiful even, but Jinha knew better. 3 days ago, the Vorthak Empire had attacked. 3 days ago, humanity had learned they were not alone in the universe. 3 days ago, everything changed. "Sir?" a voice spoke behind him. Jinha turned around. It was Lieutenant Park, one of the few survivors. The young man's uniform was torn and dirty. His face had a long cut across his cheek. "What is it, Park?" Jinha asked. "The aliens are sending another message, sir. They want us to hear it." Jinha nodded. "Put it through." The broken speakers crackled to life. The voice that came through was cold and deep. It spoke perfect English, but there was something wrong about it. Something that made your skin crawl. "Humans of Earth," the voice said. "I am Overlord Nethys of the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered your pathetic fleet. Your strongest ships are now space dust. Your bravest warriors are dead." Jinha's hands made fists. He remembered the battle. He remembered watching the Earth Defense Force get torn apart. Ships that had taken years to build were destroyed in minutes. Good people dead because they tried to protect their home. "You have 2 choices," the alien voice continued. "Submit now and we will kill you quickly. Fight us, and we will make your entire species suffer before we wipe you out. We have done this 847 times before. You are nothing special. You will surrender just like all the others." The message ended. The command center was quiet again. Lieutenant Park looked scared. "Sir, what do we do? They destroyed 90% of our fleet. We only have a few ships left. How can we fight them?" Jinha stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorthak ships were waiting. They thought the war was over. They thought humans would give up just like every other species they had conquered. They were wrong. "Park," Jinha said quietly. "Tell me about Project Thundersoul." The young man's eyes went wide. "Sir, that project is classified. I don't have clearance for—" "I'm giving you clearance," Jinha said. "Tell me everything." Park swallowed hard. It's crazy, sir. Chief Engineer Quan has been working on it for 2 years. Even before the aliens came, he said we needed to be ready for war. He built something in the asteroid belt. A ship, but not like any ship we've ever made. What makes it different? It learns, sir. The ship actually learns from fighting. Every battle makes it smarter. Every enemy attack teaches it how to defend better. Every weapon it fires gets more accurate the next time. Park paused. "But sir, it's just one ship. How can one ship fight an entire alien empire?" Jinha smiled for the first time in 3 days. It was not a nice smile. Because Park, the aliens made one big mistake. They think they know what humans are like. They think we're just another species to conquer, but they've never met anyone like us before. He turned away from the window and faced his remaining officers. There were only 12 of them left, but Jinha could see something in their eyes. It wasn't fear anymore. It was anger. The cold, burning kind of anger that made humans dangerous. "Listen to me," Jinha said. "The Vorthak Empire has conquered 847 species. They have weapons we can't imagine, ships bigger than our cities, technology that seems like magic. By every logical measure, we should surrender right now." The officers listened carefully. "But logic isn't what makes humans special," Jinha continued. "What makes us special is that we don't care about logic when our home is threatened. What makes us special is that we look at impossible odds and say, 'Try me.' What makes us special is that we get more dangerous when we're cornered." Lieutenant Park raised his hand. "Sir, how do we even find this Thundersoul ship?" Jinha pulled out a small device. It looked like a communicator, but different. "Quan gave me this before the battle. He said to use it only if we lost everything. Well, we lost everything. Time to see what a crazy engineer built when he thought nobody was watching." He pressed a button. The device made a soft beeping sound. Then nothing. They waited. After 5 minutes, Park said, "Sir, maybe it's broken?" Then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Through the broken window, they could see something moving in space. It was big, very big, and it was coming toward Luna Base. "That's not one of ours," Park whispered. "No," Jinha said, watching the shape get closer. "That's something new." The ship was like nothing they had ever seen. It was part human engineering, part alien technology, and part something else entirely. The hull seemed to shift and change as they watched. Pieces moved and rearranged themselves. It was alive in a way that made no sense. Jinha's communicator crackled to life. Admiral Jinha, this is Captain Harin of the Thunder Soul. Permission to dock, sir. Jinha had never heard of Captain Harin, but right now he didn't care. Permission granted, Captain. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, Captain Harin walked into the command center. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with short black hair and sharp eyes. She wore a uniform that looked human but had alien symbols on it. Admiral, she said with a small bow. I'm sorry about the fleet. I wanted to help, but Quan said the ship wasn't ready yet. It's ready now? Jinha asked. Harin smiled. It was the same dangerous smile that Jinha had worn earlier. Oh yes, sir. It's very ready. The Thunder Soul has been learning from every piece of alien technology we could find. It studied their attack patterns during the battle. It knows how they fight now. She pulled out a tablet and showed them images of the ship's interior. It looked impossible. Rooms that changed size and shape. Weapons that could transform into completely different weapons. Shields that could become engines. Everything connected to everything else. How does it work? Park asked. Simple, Harin said. Most species build ships to do one thing well. We built a ship to do everything well. When it needs to be fast, it becomes fast. When it needs to be strong, it becomes strong. When it needs to be smart, it becomes smart. Jinha studied the images. What do you need from us? A crew, Harin said. And permission to show the Vorthak Empire what happens when you threaten Earth. Jinha looked at his remaining officers. They all nodded. Permission granted, he said. Let's go remind the galaxy what humans are really like. Outside, the Thunder Soul waited in the darkness. It was just one ship against an empire, but as Harin had said, it was something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before, something that learned, something that adapted, something human. Captain Harin walked through the Thunder Soul's corridors with Admiral Jinha and his officers. The ship was nothing like they expected. The walls moved. Not fast, but they moved. Panels shifted position. Doors appeared where there had been solid metal moments before. This is impossible, Lieutenant Park whispered. That's what we thought too, Harin said with a smile. Then Chief Engineer Quan explained it to us. He said impossible just means nobody tried hard enough yet. They entered what looked like a command center, but it was wrong in the best possible way. Instead of fixed stations, the room had flowing workstations that moved to where people needed them. Screens appeared in the air when someone looked for information. The ceiling showed a perfect view of space, even though they were deep inside the ship. How does this work? Jinha asked. A new voice answered from everywhere and nowhere. Hello, Admiral. I am Quan, Chief Engineer of Project Thunder Soul. Jinha looked around. Where are you? Everywhere, Quan said. The voice seemed to come from the ship itself. I'm connected to every system on the Thunder Soul. I don't just work on this ship. I live inside it. Harin saw Jinha's confused look. Quan volunteered for an experimental procedure. His mind is linked to the ship's computer. He can think at the speed of light and control everything at once. That sounds dangerous, Park said. Quan laughed. The sound came from the walls around them. Everything humans do is dangerous. That's what makes us interesting. Other species play it safe. They build ships the same way for thousands of years. We build ships that can rebuild themselves. To prove his point, the room around them began to change. The command center transformed into a laboratory, then a weapons room, then back to a command center, but different from before. Every room on this ship can become any other room, Quan explained. Every weapon can become a different weapon. Every defense can become an attack. We don't just adapt to our enemies. We evolve faster than they can understand. Jinha was starting to see the bigger picture. Show me what this ship can do in battle. I was hoping you'd ask, Harin said. We detected a Vorthak patrol group 3 hours away. 6 ships. They're probably coming to check if any humans survived the attack on Luna Base. 6 ships, Park said nervously. How many do we have? 1, Harin said. But it's the right one. The Thunder Soul moved toward the enemy patrol. On the way, Jinha watched the ship prepare for battle. It was like watching a living thing get ready to hunt. Weapons grew from the hull. Armor shifted to cover weak spots. The engines changed shape to move in ways that should have torn the ship apart. How do you control all of this? Jinha asked Harin. I don't, she said. That's the secret. I tell the ship what I want to accomplish. It figures out how to do it. Traditional pilots try to control every detail. I just point the Thunder Soul at problems and let it solve them. They found the Vorthak patrol exactly where Quan predicted, 6 ships in perfect formation, moving slowly through space. They looked confident, relaxed, like they owned the universe. Standard Vorthak battle formation, Quan observed. They've used the same tactics for centuries. It works because most species fight the same way every time. Predictable, boring. What's our plan? Jinha asked. We don't have a plan, Harin said. We have something better. We have curiosity. The Thunder Soul approached the enemy ships. The Vorthak noticed them immediately. Their leader sent a message. Unknown human vessel, you will surrender immediately. Resistance is futile. Your species has already been defeated, Harin responded. This is Captain Harin of the Earth ship Thunder Soul. We have a message for you. What message? The alien demanded. Catch us if you can, Harin said. Then she cut the connection. What happened next was impossible to describe in normal words. The Thunder Soul didn't attack like a regular ship. It didn't try to shoot the enemy from a distance. Instead, it did something no species had ever tried before. It turned gravity into a weapon. The ship's gravity generators, meant to keep the crew comfortable, suddenly reached out into space. They grabbed onto the enemy ships and pulled them into a spinning dance of death. The Vorthak tried to break free, but their ships weren't built for this kind of combat. They're trying to use their standard escape maneuver, Quan reported. His voice sounded excited. Increasing power to rear engines attempting to pull away from the gravity field. Let them try, Harin said. Thunder Soul, what do you think? Should we let them go? The ship responded by changing tactics. Instead of pulling the enemy ships closer, it suddenly pushed them away. But not in the direction they expected. The Thunder Soul created a gravity slingshot that sent the Vorthak ships spinning toward each other. 2 alien ships crashed together in a ball of fire and metal. Impossible, came a panicked voice from the remaining Vorthak ships. How are you manipulating gravity like that? We're not manipulating anything, Harin said calmly. We're just using it differently than you do. You see gravity as something that holds you down. We see it as something that can throw our enemies around. The remaining 4 ships tried to spread out, to avoid being caught in another gravity trap. But the Thunder Soul was already adapting. It had learned from the first attack. Now it knew exactly how fast the enemy ships could move, how quickly they could turn, what their weapons could do. They're trying to surround us, Park observed. Good, Quan said. That makes this easier. The Thunder Soul stopped moving. It just hung in space while the 4 enemy ships formed a circle around it. The Vorthak prepared to fire all their weapons at once. Then the Thunder Soul did something that broke every rule of space combat. It folded space around itself. What just happened? Jinha demanded. We moved without moving, Harin explained. The ship bent space so that we're now behind the enemy instead of in front of them. Their own formation is now a trap for them, not us. The Vorthak ships fired their weapons, but instead of hitting the Thunder Soul, their shots hit each other. 3 more ships exploded in the crossfire. Only 1 enemy ship remained. This is impossible, the surviving Vorthak captain transmitted. What kind of creatures are you? You're not fighting like warriors. You're fighting like humans, Harin finished. We don't follow your rules. We don't fight fair. We experiment. We try new things. We turn our weaknesses into strengths and your strengths into weaknesses. The last Vorthak ship tried to run, but the Thunder Soul had learned something new from the battle. It had studied how the alien engines worked. Now it knew how to stop them. The ship fired a weapon that didn't exist 10 minutes ago. It was built from spare parts and powered by pure human stubbornness. The beam hit the fleeing Vorthak ship and simply turned off its engines. Please, the alien captain begged. We surrender. We were just following orders. The Empire made us attack your world. We know, Jinha said, taking over communications. And we're going to give you a chance to deliver a message to your Empire. What message? Tell them that humans don't fight wars the way they expect. Tell them we don't use the same tactics for centuries. Tell them we learn and adapt and evolve with every battle. Tell them that crossing humans was the biggest mistake the Vorthak Empire ever made. The alien ship limped away, carrying its warning. In the Thunder Soul's command center, the crew celebrated their impossible victory. 6 ships, Park said in amazement. We just defeated 6 ships without taking any damage. That's not the best part, Quan said. The best part is that the Thunder Soul recorded everything. Every weapon we used, every tactic we tried, every adaptation we made. The ship is now smarter than it was an hour ago. And tomorrow it will be smarter still. Harin looked at Admiral Jinha. Ready to show the galaxy what humans can really do? Jinnah smiled. Let's teach them why impossible is just another word for give us 5 minutes. Outside, the stars waited. And somewhere in the darkness, the Vorthak Empire was about to learn that they had awakened something they didn't understand, something that got stronger with every fight, something human. The message spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On Zirian Prime, a blue-skinned alien named Vex watched the transmission on his hidden communicator. His people had been slaves to the Vorthak Empire for 300 years. He had never seen Vorthak ships run away from anyone. On Kalos Station, a crystal-based life form called Shine translated the human message for her underground resistance group. They had fought the Vorthak for decades and lost every time, but now someone had actually won. On 1,000 worlds, in 1,000,000 hidden places, enslaved species whispered a word they thought was dead forever: hope. But nowhere was the message more important than in the command center of the Vorthak Empire's greatest battleship, the World Eater. Overlord Nethys stared at the recording for the 10th time. 6 of his patrol ships destroyed by a single human vessel. It should have been impossible. The humans barely had space travel. They were supposed to be easy prey. "My lord," said his aide, a nervous creature with too many eyes. Perhaps the surviving ship captain exaggerated the report. "Humans are primitive. They cannot possibly—" "Silence," Nethys growled. His voice could shatter stone. "I watched the recordings myself. These humans fight like no species we have ever encountered. They broke every rule of space combat." The aide trembled. "What are your orders, my lord?" Nethys stood up. He was 8 feet tall, covered in dark armor that had conquered 1,000 worlds. "Gather the Grand Fleet, every ship, every warrior, every weapon. We will go to this Earth and end the human problem permanently." "The entire Grand Fleet, my lord? That is 10,000 ships. Surely we don't need—" "Did you see what that single human ship did?" Nethys roared. "It used gravity as a weapon. It bent space itself. It created new weapons during the battle. These creatures are not like anything we have faced before. We will use overwhelming force to crush them before they can adapt further." Meanwhile, back in the Sol system, Admiral Jinnah was making his own preparations. The Thunder Soul had returned to the asteroid belt, to a hidden base that shouldn't have existed. When Jinnah saw it, he understood why the Vorthak had underestimated humanity so badly. "This is incredible," he said, looking out at the massive construction facility. "How long have you been building this?" Chief Engineer Kwan's voice came from the ship's speakers. 3 years. Ever since we detected the first alien signals. Most people thought I was crazy for preparing for war with species we had never met." "Maybe you are crazy," Captain Harin said with a grin, "but it's the good kind of crazy. The base was like the Thunder Soul, but bigger. Much bigger. Machines built other machines, which built weapons, which built ships. But these weren't normal ships. They were designed to work together with the Thunder Soul, to learn from it and share knowledge with it." "How many ships can this place build?" Jinnah asked. "As many as we need," Kwan replied. "But that's not the best part." "Show him, Harin." Harin led Jinnah to a viewing platform. Below them he saw something that made his breath catch. Dozens of partially built ships floated in the construction bays. But they weren't just ships. They were growing. "Living metal," Kwan explained. "We took Vorthak technology from their wrecked ships and combined it with human engineering. These ships can repair themselves, upgrade themselves, and even reproduce if needed." Lieutenant Park, who had been quiet during the tour, finally spoke up. "Sir, this is amazing, but the Vorthak Empire has thousands of ships. Even with all this, how can we fight an entire galactic empire?" Jinnah smiled. It was the smile he got when he had a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. "Park, you're thinking like every other species in the galaxy. You're thinking about ship numbers and weapon strength and traditional tactics. What should I be thinking about, sir?" "Psychology," Jinnah said. "The Vorthak Empire rules through fear. They make other species believe that resistance is hopeless, but we just proved that wrong. Now we need to make sure every species in the galaxy knows it." He turned to Harin. "I need you to do something that's never been done before. I need you to broadcast our victory to every enslaved world in the Vorthak Empire. Sir, that will tell them exactly where we are and what we can do." "Exactly," Jinnah said. "I want them to know. I want them to come here with everything they have. Because when they do, they're going to learn the difference between conquering scared primitives and fighting humans who are ready for war." Harin's eyes lit up. You want to turn the entire Sol system into a trap. Not just a trap, Jinha said. A school. We're going to teach the galaxy what humans are really capable of. The broadcast went out the next day, but it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of boasting about their victory, Admiral Jinha spoke directly to every enslaved species in the galaxy. My name is Admiral Jinha of the human species. 3 days ago, the Vorthak Empire attacked our world. They told us resistance was impossible. They said we would surrender like all the others. The message showed recordings from the Thunder Souls' battle with the patrol ships. They were wrong. Not because we're stronger than you, or smarter than you, or more advanced than you. They were wrong because we refused to believe them. On worlds across the galaxy, enslaved beings watched in amazement as a single human ship destroyed 6 Vorthak vessels, using tactics no one had ever imagined. The Vorthak tell you that you're weak, that you can't fight back, that resistance brings only death. But look at these recordings. We're not special. We're just a species that decided impossible was not an acceptable answer. On Zerion Prime, Vex felt something he hadn't felt in centuries. Anger. Not the helpless anger of a slave, but the focused anger of someone who suddenly saw a way to fight back. On Kalos Station, Shine gathered her resistance fighters. For the first time, they started planning attacks they thought they could win. To every species listening, Jinha continued, the Vorthak are coming to Earth with their entire fleet. They want to end the human problem before it spreads. But I have news for them. It's already spread. Hope is contagious. Freedom is contagious. And the idea that impossible just means not yet figured out is the most contagious idea in the universe. The message ended with coordinates to the Sol system and a simple invitation. Come and see what humans do when cornered. Come and learn what your species can do when it stops believing in impossible. 3 days later, Overlord Nethys received reports that made his blood run cold. My lord, we're getting rebellion reports from 17 different worlds. The slaves are fighting back. They're using tactics similar to what we saw from the humans. 43 worlds now, my lord. The rebellions are spreading. 67 worlds. The human message is being repeated on every slave world in the Empire. Nethys crushed his command chair with his bare hands. How many ships do we have ready? 10,000, my lord, the entire Grand Fleet. Launch immediately. We go to Earth now before this madness spreads any further. Back on the Thunder Soul, Quan detected the massive fleet movement. They're coming, he announced. Every ship they have. It's the largest military force in galactic history. Perfect, Jinha said calmly. Harin, how are our preparations going? Jupiter's moons are now kinetic weapon platforms. Mars has been converted into a railgun. The asteroid belt is full of ships that look like rocks, and the Thunder Soul has learned 17 new ways to bend the laws of physics. What about the Sol system itself? Jinha asked. Quan's laugh came from everywhere at once. Let's just say that by the time the Vorthak get here, they won't be fighting a human fleet. They'll be fighting an entire star system that's been turned into the galaxy's largest weapon. Haran looked at the approaching enemy fleet on her screens. 10,000 ships against one solar system. Are you sure this is going to work? Jinha's smile was pure human confidence mixed with complete insanity. Haran, when has "are you sure this will work" ever stopped humans from trying something? She laughed. Never, sir, never. Outside, the stars waited, and somewhere in the darkness 10,000 Vorthak ships raced toward Earth, carrying an empire's worth of rage and the absolute certainty that they would crush the human rebellion. They had no idea they were flying straight into humanity's greatest trap that would teach the galaxy what it really meant to fight like a human. The Vorthak Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a dark storm cloud made of metal and death. 10,000 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. They had come to end the human problem once and for all. Overlord Nethys stood on the bridge of his flagship, the World Eater. Through the massive viewing window, he could see the human solar system spread out before him. It looked peaceful, quiet, almost defenseless. Scan for human ships, he ordered. His aide, nervous as always, studied the readouts. My lord, we detect only scattered debris and some mining stations. No major fleet presence. It appears the humans are hiding behind their home planet. Nethys smiled coldly. Cowards. They made noise with their little victory, but now they cower like all the others. Begin the attack. Destroy everything. But as the Grand Fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, strange things began to happen. The first sign of trouble came near Jupiter. My lord, the aide said, his voice shaking. We're detecting massive energy readings from Jupiter's moons. They appear to be artificial. Before Nethys could respond, one of Jupiter's moons fired. It wasn't a moon anymore. It was a weapon the size of a moon. The kinetic projectile hit the lead Vorthak ships at a significant fraction of light speed. 300 ships simply vanished in a flash of light and metal. Impossible, Nethys roared. How did they turn a moon into a weapon? Sir, came a panicked voice from the communication station. We're getting similar readings from all the outer planets. The entire system has been weaponized. That's when the asteroids attacked. What the Vorthak had thought were simple space rocks suddenly came alive. Hundreds of them revealed themselves to be ships perfectly disguised and lying in wait. They struck from every direction, using the same impossible tactics they had seen from the Thundersoul. They're using gravity weapons, screamed one ship captain before his transmission cut to static. The asteroids are bending space around us, shouted another. How are they doing this? Rocks don't have gravity generators. But these weren't rocks. They were human ships built to look like asteroids, armed with weapons that shouldn't exist, and piloted by crews who had learned from the Thundersoul's first battle. Overlord Nethys watched in growing horror as his perfect formation fell apart. His ships, trained to fight in organized lines against predictable enemies, couldn't handle chaos on this scale. Fall back to standard battle formation, he ordered. Sir, there is no standard formation for this, his aide replied. They're attacking from above, below, and inside our own formation simultaneously. That's when Mars fired. The entire planet had been converted into a massive railgun. When it fired, the magnetic pulse was so powerful it could be felt across the solar system. The projectile it launched wasn't a shell or a missile. It was a chunk of metal the size of a building, accelerated to impossible speeds. It punched through 50 Vorthak ships like they were made of paper. This is madness, Nethys screamed. They turned an entire planet into a weapon. How is that even possible? Deep in the Sol system, aboard the Thundersoul, Captain Harin watched the battle with calm satisfaction. How are we doing, Quan? She asked. Chief Engineer Quan's voice came from every speaker on the ship.
Better than expected.
The Vorthak are trying to use traditional battle tactics against a solar system that doesn't follow traditional rules. They're losing about 200 ships per minute. And us? Admiral Jinha asked. We haven't lost a single ship yet, Harin reported. The disguised asteroid ships are working perfectly. Every time the enemy adapts to one tactic, we switch to a different one. Lieutenant Park, who was now serving as Harin's second-in-command, looked worried. Ma'am, they still have over 8,000 ships left. Even at this rate, they outnumber us massively. Harin smiled. Park, you're still thinking like everyone else in the galaxy. You're counting ships, but we're not fighting a ship battle. We're fighting a system battle, and the system is winning. She was right. The Vorthak Grand Fleet, designed to overwhelm enemies through superior numbers, was being torn apart by an enemy they couldn't even find. Every time they tried to attack something, it moved. Every time they formed up for a coordinated assault, something attacked them from a direction they hadn't considered, but the real surprise was still coming. My lord, the aide said, reading new sensor data. We're detecting a massive energy buildup at the edge of the system. Something very large is approaching. Through the chaos of battle, a new ship appeared. It was the Thundersoul, but it wasn't the same ship that had fought the patrol weeks ago. It was bigger, much bigger, and it was different in ways that hurt to look at. What is that thing? Nethys demanded. The Thundersoul had been busy during the weeks of preparation. Every piece of alien technology recovered from battle, every new idea from Quan's impossible mind, every lesson learned from fighting the Vorthak had been absorbed into the ship. It had grown. It had evolved. It had become something that had never existed before in the galaxy. This is Captain Harin of the Earth ship Thundersoul, came a transmission. Overlord Nethys, you wanted to see what humans could do when cornered. Allow me to demonstrate. What happened next redefined what was possible in space combat. The Thundersoul didn't attack like a ship. It attacked like a force of nature. It created artificial black holes and threw them at enemy formations. When the Vorthak tried to escape, it bent space so that running away actually brought them closer. When they tried to surround it, it folded dimensions so that it was attacking them from inside their own ships. This is impossible, Nethys screamed into his communicator. Physics doesn't work that way. Physics works however humans need it to work, Harin replied calmly. You made the mistake of thinking we would fight by your rules. We don't have rules. We have imagination. The Thunder Soul demonstrated this by doing something that broke every law of space warfare. It stole an enemy weapon while it was being fired and turned it around mid-flight. A Vorthak planet killer, the Empire's most powerful weapon, suddenly found itself heading back toward the ship that had fired it. No, Nethys screamed. That planet killer has never failed in 1,000 years of conquest. It's never met humans before, Harin said. Quan, show them what we did to their precious superweapon. The planet killer struck the Vorthak flagship. But instead of exploding, it did something else. Something impossible. It converted the ship into pure energy, and then redistributed that energy to power human weapons. You turned our own planet killer into a battery? Nethys asked in horror. We improved it, Quan's voice said cheerfully. Your weapon could only destroy. Our version can destroy and then use that destruction to create something better. It's much more efficient. Around the battlefield, the remaining Vorthak ships began to surrender. They had never seen anything like this. Their perfect formation tactics, their overwhelming numbers, their superior technology. None of it mattered against an enemy that redefined the rules of combat with every attack. Please, came transmissions from dozens of ship captains. We surrender. We didn't know. We didn't understand what you were capable of. But Overlord Nethys wasn't finished. In his rage and humiliation, he activated his flagship's final weapon, a reality bomb that could tear a hole in space itself. If I cannot conquer you, he roared, then I will destroy everything. This weapon will tear apart your entire solar system. The reality bomb launched. It was a weapon that had destroyed entire civilizations. Nothing could stop it. Nothing could deflect it. It would unmake everything it touched. Harin watched it approach on her screens. Then she smiled. Quan, she said, I think it's time to show them the real secret of human engineering. What secret? Nethys demanded. We don't just learn how to use alien technology, Harin said. We learn how to make it better. Your reality bomb is impressive, but ours is going to be spectacular. The Thunder Soul fired its own reality weapon, but instead of destroying reality, it rewrote it. The space around the Vorthak reality bomb suddenly decided that the bomb didn't exist anymore. It simply vanished, erased from existence by human stubbornness made manifest. Then the Thunder Soul's reality weapon kept going and hit Overlord Nethys's flagship. The ship didn't explode. Instead, it was transformed into something else. Something peaceful. Something that could never be used for war again. Impossible, Nethys whispered from his transformed bridge. How do you keep doing impossible things? Admiral Jinha's voice came over the communications channel, speaking to every Vorthak ship in the system. Because Overlord Possible was never good enough for humans. We've been doing impossible things since we first looked at the stars and decided we wanted to visit them. The only difference now is that we have better tools. The Battle of Sol was over. The largest fleet in galactic history had been defeated by one solar system and a handful of humans who refused to accept that anything was impossible. But the real victory wasn't the destroyed ships or the surrendered fleet. The real victory was the message that was already spreading across the galaxy. Humans didn't just win by being stronger or smarter, they won by being human. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Jinha stood in the new Galactic Council chambers on Neutral Harmony Station. Representatives from 847 species filled the Great Hall. These were the same species that had been slaves to the Vorthak Empire just months ago. Now they were free, and they all wanted to meet the humans who had made it possible. But Jinha wasn't there to receive praise. He was there to deliver a warning. Fellow beings of the galaxy, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. 6 months ago, humanity was just another primitive species facing extinction. Today, the Vorthak Empire no longer exists, but we didn't win because we were special. The crowd murmured in confusion. Every species there had heard the stories of the Thunder Soul's impossible victories, of weapons that bent reality, of humans who fought like forces of nature. We won because we remembered something you had all forgotten, Jinha continued. Every species in this room was once like us, wild, unpredictable, willing to try impossible things. The Vorthak didn't conquer you because they were stronger. They conquered you because you forgot who you were. On Zarian Prime, Vex watched the transmission with his newly free people. The blue-skinned alien had led one of the first successful revolts against Vorthak rule. He understood what the human was saying. During the rebellion, his people had rediscovered tactics their ancestors had used centuries ago. Old ways of fighting that the Vorthak had never seen before. The galaxy didn't need humanity to save it, Jinha said. It needed humanity to remind it that salvation was possible. In the audience, Captain Haran sat with the other human representatives. She was wearing a simple uniform, not the fancy dress clothes that other species favored for formal occasions. The Thunder Soul was docked outside the station, still learning, still growing, still proving that adaptation never stopped. A tall alien with crystal skin stood up. Harin recognized her as Shine, the leader of the Kalos resistance movement. Admiral Jinha, Shine said, her voice like musical chimes, "My people have a question. The Vorthak Empire ruled for 1,000 years. They had technology we could barely imagine. How did humanity defeat them so completely in just 6 months?" Jinha smiled. "Because we didn't try to defeat their technology. We tried to defeat their thinking. The Vorthak expected every species to fight the same way. When we fought differently, their entire system fell apart. But surely your weapons were superior," asked another alien, this one resembling a giant insect. "We have seen recordings of the Thunder Soul bending space itself. Our weapons were different, not superior," Jinha explained. "Chief Engineer Quan, would you like to answer that?" Quan's voice came from speakers throughout the chamber. He was still connected to the Thunder Soul, still part human and part living ship. The Thunder Soul wasn't built to be the best weapon. It was built to be the best learner. Every battle taught it something new. Every enemy showed it a new way to adapt. But how? Pressed the insect-like alien. "How do you learn so quickly?" "Because we never stopped asking, what if?" Quan replied. "What if we used gravity as a weapon? What if we turned moons into cannons? What if we made ships that could rebuild themselves during battle? Other species had the same technology we did. They just never thought to use it differently." From her seat, Harin stood up. "If I may, Admiral?" Jinha nodded. "I want to share something with everyone here," Harin said. "After the Battle of Sol, we captured thousands of Vorthak officers. Do you know what they all said? They said our tactics were impossible. They said our weapons couldn't work. They said physics didn't allow what we were doing." She paused, looking around the chamber. "They were wrong about physics, but they were right about one thing. What we did should have been impossible. It was impossible right up until the moment we did it anyway. An ancient alien with too many arms raised one to speak. But surely there must be limits. Even for humans?" Harin's eyes twinkled with the same dangerous light that had made the Vorthak Empire tremble. "Sir, every time someone tells us something is impossible, we take that as a personal challenge. Limits exist to be overcome. Rules exist to be rewritten. And impossible is just another word for give us 5 minutes." The crowd laughed. It was the sound of 847 species who were remembering what it felt like to be free, to be creative, to be unafraid of trying new things. But then a new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It was deep and familiar and filled with shame. "May I speak?" asked Overlord Nethys. The chamber fell silent. The former leader of the Vorthak Empire walked slowly to the center of the room. He was no longer wearing his intimidating armor. Instead, he wore simple clothes and moved like someone who had learned hard lessons about humility. "I commanded the fleet that attacked Earth," Nethys said quietly. "I led the empire that enslaved your worlds. I am the reason many of you suffered for centuries." The chamber remained silent, but it wasn't an angry silence. It was the silence of beings who were waiting to hear what came next. "When we attacked the humans, I thought we were facing primitives, weak creatures who would surrender after the first battle. I was wrong about everything." He looked directly at Admiral Jinha. "I want to tell every species here what I learned from fighting humans." "What did you learn?" Jinha asked gently. "I learned that strength isn't about having the biggest weapons or the most ships. Strength is about never giving up, even when everything seems hopeless. I learned that victory isn't about following the same tactics for 1,000 years. Victory is about thinking of something new every day." Nethys turned to face the assembled species. "But most importantly, I learned that the greatest mistake an empire can make is believing that conquest means anything. You can conquer a species. You can conquer a world. You can even conquer a galaxy, but you cannot conquer an idea. And the human idea, that impossible just means not yet figured out. That idea is unconquerable. The former overlord bowed deeply to the assembled representatives. I came here to ask forgiveness. Not for myself, but for my people. Many Vorthak never wanted to be conquerors. We were just afraid to be anything else. The humans showed us that fear is not a good reason to hurt others. Admiral Jinha walked over to Nethys. For a moment, the chamber held its breath. The human admiral looked tiny next to the massive alien warrior. Then Jinha extended his hand. The past is finished, he said simply. What matters now is what we all do next. Nethys stared at the offered hand. Then slowly he reached out and shook it. The chamber erupted in cheers. 847 species celebrating not just the end of an empire, but the beginning of something new, something better. Later, as the formal ceremonies ended, Harin found herself standing with Jinha and Quan, his voice coming from a portable speaker, on the observation deck of Harmony Station. So what happens now? Harin asked. The war is over. The empire is gone. The galaxy is free. What does humanity do next? Jinha looked out at the stars where ships from hundreds of worlds were learning to work together instead of fighting each other. What we've always done, he said with a smile. We look at what everyone says is impossible, and we figure out how to do it anyway. Like what? Harin asked. Quan's laugh filled the observation deck. Like building a galaxy where 847 different species can work together in peace. Everyone says it's impossible. Different biology, different thinking, different needs. It'll never work. But, Harin prompted. But, Jinha said, his eyes bright with the same fire that had defeated an empire. Impossible has never stopped humans before. Why should it stop us now? Outside the station, the Thunder Soul floated in space, its hull gleaming with new modifications and improvements. It was no longer just a warship. It was becoming something new. Something that could explore, create, and build instead of just fight. On the bridge of the great ship, systems that had once been weapons were transforming into tools of exploration and construction. The same technology that had bent reality to defeat enemies now reached out toward distant stars, looking for new worlds to explore, new species to meet, new impossibilities to make possible. The Vorthak Empire had lasted 1,000 years by making other species afraid to dream, but humanity had ended it in 6 months by proving that dreams were more powerful than fear. And now, with 847 species rediscovering their courage and creativity, the galaxy was about to learn what was really possible when impossible stopped being an acceptable answer. The age of empires was over. The age of exploration had begun, and it was going to be amazing.